Welcome to Step Into Your Story. I'm Carla Goldberg, and this is a space to breathe, listen inward, and step into the story your soul is guiding you toward. If you feel there's something missing in your life, or you're drawn to develop your spiritual side, you are in the right space. This is episode 5 of a 5-part series where we've been looking at how to fill that empty space inside that keeps calling out to you and really determine what it is it's trying to say. Because that's not just your intuition. Intuition can be a part of it, but that's your soul really reaching out to you and trying to guide your path for this life. So before we get started, I want to review because we've gone over a lot of information in the last 4 episodes. So I'm going to do a real quick review in case you missed one of the episodes. Episode 1, we talked about the void. That's how we recognize that empty space inside us and we acknowledge that we've been filling it with things that are not ideal. And then we focused on how to identify some of those things we fill it with. Episode 2, we talked about the whisper. That's that soul talking to us. And I say soul, but it can be spirit, God, divine, whichever words you want to use and feel comfortable with. But that whisper, we acknowledged that we keep hearing physical noise and we put ourselves in places and instances. So it's harder to hear that message, that whisper, the soul talking to us, because we're trying to avoid it, because there's things that it's going to require us to do that we may or may not be comfortable with. And we focus on how the soul talks to us through sensations, images, knowing. In episode 3, we talked about the mirror. The mirror is our reflection of what we need to work on, what we've been doing wrong, and there's some hard lessons in there, but it is full of really pushing us beyond what we're comfortable with, because that's where growth happens. And as part of the focus, we looked at what we need to work on in our own lives. Then we went on to episode 4, which talked about the flame. There's 3 parts to the flame. We have memory. That's what we're called to do, remembering our soul purpose. We have courage. Courage has 2 parts, reactive fire and soul fire. Then is responsibility, and not earthly responsibility, but our soul calling responsibility and what that means. And our focus was to document when you felt that inner calling to do something and try and notice a pattern to see if it's part of your overarching theme of this life. And now we are here at episode 5, where we're going to step into action. This is the integration, the embodiment, really starting a new chapter and growing. So the first thing I want to go over is spiral healing. And this is what I do when I'm working with clients, is that a lot of people think healing is a linear process. And I don't know if that's just carryover from our typical modern medicine. You know, you have this ailment, you take this pill and you're cured. But it doesn't work that way. There's lots of layers, and it's not just layers. That's why I call it spiral. Okay. Think of like a vortex, a tornado. It's something you loop around to. You just keep coming back. There's no final destination. And like, let me give you an example. When I'm working with people, we may work on a certain trauma, and I'm fortunate enough that when I work with people, people don't have to talk about their trauma. I don't have to know what the trauma is, and I can heal people through it. But what happens is I may heal that one piece of trauma, and then that's enough for a little bit. So we're going to go working around a spiral. Think of a spiral. And I keep coming around the corner, going to a different space and working on something over there. And then we may come back to that same area, but because it's a spiral, it's not the exact same area, maybe the same topic. But when you loop around, you have grown since then. You have a new perspective, and each loop brings a new vantage point as to how to look at something. So here's an example from my own life that I think most people can identify with, not necessarily the exact example, but how we think, how we think we know better than other people, right? Even though we may have not been in that exact walking in their shoes. So my example is raising kids. Before I had kids, I had a lot of strong opinions about how parents should raise kids. And then I had some. And my firstborn, my son, was very easy. He slept the first night and every night since. It was never an issue, never needy and crying. He was just, he was fine. So it was great. And I was like, wow, what are people talking about? This doesn't make sense. And then I had my second child, and she needed things that were totally different than my firstborn. And she needed physical touch all the time. So I went from a kid who really didn't want me touching him, just wanted to be left alone, to someone who needed that physical touch. And it was a huge shift for me. And as the kids grew older and their personalities developed further, I realized I don't know what I'm talking about. And I started to respect my parents' decisions a lot more. Now, I still made my own mistakes, especially as the kids got older about what to do. And um, some of the things that my parents' principles I did carry over, but not all of them. And I'm sure my kids are going to learn from my mistakes and some of the things, if they choose to have children, they're going to be raising them different, but some of the things might be the same. But each time I learned about things I was doing that were not benefiting me and my family, think of it like thinking of that spiral, I came back and I'm like, oh, I now have a new perspective. I get it. I understand not all kids are the same. I understand you just can't make certain rules with no variance or having grace for them and ourselves because we're humans and we're messy and children don't have the coping skills adults have. So, it's a process that I will be forever on this earth, learning how to work with my kids as they now become adults and things happen. And it's really been a learning process. And I had to give myself grace because I could have easily said, I did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Yes, I acknowledge what I did wrong, but to move forward, we have to think about, okay, what am I going to do next? And that's part of that spiral looping. It's like, okay, I healed that portion. Now I'm going to come back later and heal another dimension. It's not just layers. It's not like the onion. It's way more complicated. I know people use the onion as the common example, but it's not the onion. It's a spiral, people. You got to go back and around, and there is no end. It's not like you get to the center and woohoo, we're done. All right. So getting back to stepping into action. So we have that spiral healing. That's something you're going to have to do to get into action steps is you have to heal that trauma, that guilt, that shame, that I'm not enough, that I can never do X or Y or BZ. There's so much there for us to work with. I think it's pretty much a lifetime working on those things. So another piece to the stepping into action is having micro choices and recognizing those micro choices make long-term integration. So when you think about a spiritual practice and micro choices you can make, it can be simply making a choice one day. If you don't meditate, maybe tomorrow when you wake up before you start your day, you just have something small. And maybe it is like for 30 seconds, you're just going to clear your mind and meditate a little bit. The expectation is not to meditate and go for 30 minutes if you've never meditated. And I think that is the challenge a lot of people have, because they're like, well, I can't do it perfect, so I'm not going to do it at all. And as if there's no perfect way. But I know a lot of gurus make it sound like, well, if you're not meditating for at least 20 minutes a day, you're a failure as a spiritual person. And that's not true. And everybody's different. And meditation means so many different things. So let's look at those micro choices and think about what micro choices can you make. And it's not just meditating. It can be something saying yes or no to people. That is a micro choice. If you are afraid to share your thoughts and one day you share your thought with someone, that is a micro choice. It doesn't mean you're sharing your thoughts to everyone all the time, every day, but you're making a micro choice forward. Think about a little step moving forward, how you start your morning, thinking about intention, like this is what I want to do today. This is how I want to feel. Those are all things that are small little steps that we can make that move the needle forward. And some of the other examples is if someone reacts to something, how you respond is a micro choice. And some of these are harder to do in the moment, right? So if you're not doing them when you're calm, you're probably not going to do them when things get heated. So start practicing when you're calm and things are nice. Another thing that can help you make those micro steps is to acknowledge that there's a knowing that's in your soul, that intuition, that truth. And you don't have to have facts for every single thing before you make a choice. Because part of learning to tap into who you are in your story is recognizing that intuition and validating it by following up. And when you get those prompts, no matter how small, to follow them and don't think you have to have 100% facts, because that's an unrealistic expectation that we humans put on ourselves. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to embody your soul story in real life context. So here's what I'm talking about. So relationships. Yeah, bomb. Relationships are the hardest, in my opinion. So speaking truth instead of fear. Setting boundaries that honor your energy. A lot of people, we talk about setting boundaries with other people, but we're not thinking about the energy as a piece of that. If you are with someone who drains you all the time, you need some space from that person. And you need to recognize that and figure out how to make micro steps towards that. You want to listen to your soul story. And a lot of times people who irritate us, who trigger us, it has nothing to do with them. They're holding up a mirror and we're seeing ourselves in that. When you have people that annoy you, there's something that is a lesson for you to learn. And let's talk about work and purpose. I really want to challenge you to bring intuition into decision making. And that kind of goes back to having all the facts, right? We're not going to have all the facts. If you wait to have all the facts have changed, right? Especially at work. So many different dynamics and sales and profits and numbers. So I want you to think about how to bring intuition into that and letting your values guide your leadership or your creativity, depending what type of business setting you're in your job. But really thinking about your job as, because most of us are there for at least 8 hours a day. And that's an extension of us. And if what we're doing isn't aligning, I'm not saying you need to quit your job. I'm saying, how can you bring more of your natural alignment into your work? And, it's back to those micro steps, right? If you're having problems saying what you need at work, maybe one day you go in and say one small thing, even if it would be really nice if I had a keyboard where the S key doesn't stick, right? It can be something that simple. That is part of moving forward. And notice when your soul story might need a shift or reshape or a pivot with your career path. That does happen. I'm not saying you need to, but just be open to seeing that. That's all I'm asking. Just open to seeing. And the other part we're going to talk about in terms of our real life, incorporating what we've learned over these last 4 episodes, is creativity and expression. Letting your voice, your art, your music, your writing, your social media, however you are creative, letting that piece come out that speaks to your soul. Not what gets the most likes and the most numbers and the algorithms and the AI. Speak from your heart and what it is you are called to do, because that is where you're going to get the numbers that are true, the numbers, the followers that are totally agreeing with you and in alignment with where you want to be. Do you really want followers that are from a totally different viewpoint that are then going to turn into trolls? No. So it's not just numbers. It's the quality of those numbers. And think about creating from alignment instead of obligation when you're being creative. And what does that look like? And it's going to be different for everybody. And that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. So our fourth piece is the courage to walk differently. And I have an example of this of when I went to Maui with a group of ladies and we were doing some earth healing. And there were some people in the group that were very vocal. When I say very vocal, I mean like yowza vocal. You know who they are. And I had to, wow. Okay. I can feel the I can feel the emotions coming through. So I still have some things I need to deal with this. I thought I dealt with a lot of it, which I have, but there's still some there. So what happened was I felt like I had to make myself small because those people were so loud and big and their energy was just huge. And I felt like I had to make myself small so we could all physically be in a room. And by making myself small, that meant I wasn't vocalizing. I wasn't saying what what needed to be said. And it's been a healing process for me to really discover my voice. And it really helped me actually step into this podcast because I know after going through that, I was giving specific instructions by spirit as to what was supposed to happen for the earth healing. And I was not being heard. And there was a lot that went on. But the bottom line is I didn't even go to the main event. And because it was not working out. But I've learned so much from that I was not there to heal Earth. I was there to heal Carla. And that's how our spirit works a lot. We think we're there for something else, but we're really there to heal us. And I've learned so much from that. And another day I will talk about that whole journey. But the point being is I've had to have the courage to walk differently. And I did stand up and I tried with the skills I had. Now I have new skills. Um, and part of that is also letting go of old identities. The steps often require releasing our old thoughts, our old patterns, things that we thought were part of us, but they're not. So some of the common patterns people have that usually are not in alignment with where their soul contract is people pleasing, overworking, hiding, perfectionism. Those things are not created as part of our soul journey. Those are things that humans put on each other and we put on ourselves that usually don't serve a good purpose. So what does stepping into your story look like? And it's that step can be tiny or monumental. And, earlier we talked about making little tiny steps. And some of these can be something like sending an email, saying no, maybe signing up for a creative class, looking at a pattern and say no for the first time. And then celebrate the successes. You don't have to wait till your birthday to celebrate that you're here, right? We can do that every day. And sometimes people find it helpful to start a ritual every morning or before they go to bed. Those are types of things that can help us. The important thing to remember is we're looking at making steps. It's not a finish line. There is no finish line. We just keep stepping forward because it's the beginning of the next chapter. So we think, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be great. And I'm going to, ascend and be beautiful. Well, that's just a part of it. That was just the first step. If you have felt connected to this series, I encourage you to do a weekly reflection and think about what has aligned with your soul story. What didn't align? What do you want to shift? And I don't mean a list of 20 things. I mean one thing. What one thing would you like to shift? Because you can't fix everything at once, right? That's unrealistic. We cannot do that. So pick one thing that you would like to shift and give yourself compassion because we're going to mess up. We are going to do great one day. It's the old example of take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Well, sometimes you take 3 steps back. And that's part of being human. And that's okay. We're all doing it. People just aren't sharing it. Okay. We are all there with you. You walked from the void. We talked about the void, the whisper, the mirror, the flame. And now you are ready to step into that new embodiment and embrace things. So for your homework, I want you to identify one thing that no longer fits your soul story and work on that aspect, whether it's saying no to others, yes to self-care, setting boundaries, and think of not just physical boundaries. I mean, yes, of course, everyone needs to be safe, but also look at those energetic boundaries. Where are you being drained? What things are a real hindrance to your own spiritual growth? And what things do we need to let go of? A lot of times those patterns are really things to let go of. And you're the one that keeps holding on to them. I'm the one that keeps holding on. We need to let those go. So even though this is the final episode in our 5-part series, I'm going to continue this podcast. And I would love to know what type of topics you want to hear. Each Wednesday, I'm going to be dropping another episode. And in the future, I'm looking at developing an online community, not Facebook, like a real separate community. And I'm looking at monthly virtual healings, a place to gather like-minded people. I want to develop courses. I'm a trainer, and that's kind of my thing is I teach, and I want to incorporate that, providing free resources. And initially it'll be a not paid thing. And then if it grows to something bigger, I might do a fee. We'll see how it goes. And, I can do behind the scenes, virtual healings, world healings. And so if that's something you're interested in, definitely go to my website and get on my email list so I can send you updates about what is happening and where we're at. If this podcast has been helpful, please like, subscribe, follow, post a review. If you give me a review, I will read it on the air. I'm about to read some in a minute here. And it really helps the algorithm. And the reason I say this is because I know more people are just like you, and this message will be helpful, but we need to get it out to them, right? So please help with that. And I'm going to read some reviews. All right. Here is a review from Katie B63. I love you, Katie. I happen to know who this person is. She told me she wrote a review. Anyway, here's what she says. Your content was very relatable for where I am as a woman, a wife, and a mother. I find myself reclaiming the parts of me that fractaled off along the way. Wow. That is so cool. She didn't write that part. Okay, back to the review. Thank you for starting this conversation. I will be back for more. Katie, thank you so much. And that's exactly the people I want to help. When we feel that piece of us that has gone off and away, I want to help you bring it back. The next review is from Nika O. Storm. And Nika O. Storm gave me 5 stars. And the comment is articulate and supportive for those of us seeking answers, that there is more to life than what meets the eye. Thank you, Carla, for walking this journey with us. Thank you so much. I love helping people. It's part of my mission work and what I'm supposed to be doing. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, if this was helpful, please like, subscribe, share, get the word out, because we can all make this a better place for each other and ourselves. Until next time, walk gently, listen closely, and keep stepping into your story.